welcome to the first talk, conversation. We hope that it will be a conversation after these two presentations, because the idea is really to allow to create this space of discussing among each other and breaking a little bit this separation that that is somehow created. And we have, as you have seen, I imagine, a program of talks starting today that will happen today, tomorrow, and then we have a full online program during the week. And we'll end in the next week, and then we created quite a kind of path that starts with his subject, the large subject of the index PNL, coexistence, and about difficulties and also possibilities that this coexistence with technology can offer to us. And one of the things, as you know, this program and this BNL resonates also with the 74 revolution, the transformation also of politics in Portugal. So this question of how our coexistence with technology also has political dimensions. It's something that we want to bring also to these discussions. So somehow I think that this is an entrance also for this meeting today. And I want to start by thank you, Tatiana Bazzichelli. I'm sorry, you just teach me to really... Bazzichelli, yes, thank you. And Joana Moll for being here. Today the title of the meeting now today is Art as Evidence, when art meets whistleblowing. And I think we'll speak a little bit about, or a lot, 1 hour and something, about also these resonances between political action, social action, and art. And it's interesting to see that even whistleblowing, that we listen in outside art context, it came from the cinema director, so it came really from the art scene also. We will have first the presentation of Tatiana, and then Joana Moll, and then we'll open to the debate. I would just like to do a small presentation also of Tatiana and Joana. Tatiana Bazzichelli is the founder and director of Disruption Network Lab, a non-profit organization based in Berlin. And since 2014, she has been exploring the intersection of politics, technology, and society. Her artistic work focuses on whistleblowing, network culture, art, and activism. And she is the author of Whistleblowing for Change, that was published in 2021, and from a book from 2013, Networked Disruption. I think we'll learn a little bit more about these connections between network, culture, art, and activism. Joana Moll, in my left side, is an artist, researcher, and teacher. I think perhaps some of you already know her work because she presented recently an exhibition here in Generation. She is living between Spain and Germany, between Barcelona and Berlin. I know that you collaborate a lot. Joana is also artist in residency in the Disruption Lab. And she's also the co-founder of the Critical Interface Politics Research Group at Arte in Barcelona. I think her work that explores techno-capitalist narratives, effects in machines, human, and ecosystems. So we are always speaking about coexistence here. And her work has been presented in several places, Ars Electronica, Venice Biennale, and others. So, presentations are done, and I will give the word now to Tatiana. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. First, I would like to thank a lot the organization of Index, Luis and Liliana, for inviting me. And it's actually the second time I am in Braga, and it's a great place to be and speak about these topics, I think, also because you say it's very important to connect the discourse of art, whistleblowing, and also political criticism. And very important what you just say, that we have to remind also how these factors could be connected. So my presentation will be about these connections, and I want to say also very glad to be here on stage with Joana. I always try to say that working with art, politics, and society could not be done if there are not relationships among people. So it's really a pleasure to be here and actually have this conversation together, because we have been also working a lot together. So it makes also sense to investigate a bit deeper what we are doing. So my presentation, as you see on the title, connects the discourse of art and whistleblowing. And the main issue is art as evidence, that I'm going then to discuss and explain a bit better what is about. And so we start first by introducing what the Disruption Network Lab is. I just want to be brief about that. Since 2014, as Liliana say, I'm running this organization in Berlin that is called Disruption Network Lab. And every word has a sense, especially the idea of disruption and network brought together. In the presentation, I will explain why. What we do is try to connect the discourse of politics, technology, and society. And our motto is exposing systems of power and injustice. We do that by connecting people that come from very different backgrounds, from whistleblowers, hackers, artists, activists, investigative journalists, researchers. And it's from this combination of people that also we are able to investigate topics that needs to be revealed to the public, and also bring the unexpected, that is also very important in the art field. The idea of the unexpected is also very important in the Disruption Network Lab, because sometimes we give for granted situation, and instead we try to expose systems of power and injustice that we don't know, but we try to make more accessible to the public. And so I could start the presentation by saying, how can we connect the discourse of investigations and art, and at the same time also how is possible to collaborate together to expose systems of power and injustice, and also try to merge skills and experience to do an artistic discourse. That is not a combination that often happens, how whistleblowing connects with arts. So today I'm also trying to bring this aspect that makes the discourse of whistleblowing also very close to the public, if you want, because sometimes it will be very technical and specific, while art try at least to be accessible, and is a challenge, but also a really important action to do to connect these aspects together. And I think that first of all, an organization that we need to mention in this aspect, and actually that we all got inspired by, is WikiLeaks. And around WikiLeaks there are a lot of situations and also a lot of misinformation that's have been very difficult to explain exactly what the organization did, what is the role of Julian Assange, why he's in prison now. And in general, I would say that what is happening right now also to Julian Assange is a big injustice, because he is a person that not only created a big revolution in the field of journalism, because through WikiLeaks we had the possibility to have accessibility of data that were open to the public, but at the same time also trying to make people understand that journalism could be a collaborative action that could bring people together to expose systems of power and injustice. As many of you know, Julian Assange is at the moment in prison since actually a very long time. There will be one of the many trials the 20th of May, and is also risking extradition to US and a prison sentence of 175 years. And I think that we have to be all aware of the difficulty and the sensitivity of this situation, because we own a lot to WikiLeaks also in terms of freedom of the press. But also art, and this is something that is not always mentioned, and I really like to say, because one project that is a bit obscure and maybe few people remember is what WikiLeaks did in 2009, so a long time ago. And there was a project that you can still find online on the 911.wikileaks.org. And for 24 hours, starting in 2009 and every year after that, was possible to see on the page of WikiLeaks a lot of information that were related to 9/11, and especially very simple messages that the people were sharing before and after what happened at 9/11, so the fall of the Twin Towers. And this is an information that people were sharing through a little device that was called Pager. And WikiLeaks released this data by showing the pre and post of this disaster, and for example, how the police was announcing it and discussing it, and also all the services around, the Pentagon, but also the people in service. And is a very important piece also of art, if you want, because shows an aspect of society on that moment, and that is it in a way that is recursive, so happens every year, and is done through these scores that appear on the website. And this course gives a lot of information, and we could also define it as a piece of art as evidence, if you want. So if you are curious, you can still find it online. And then another very important aspect that I always likes to mention is collateral murder. That is the video that Chelsea Manning released to WikiLeaks together with a lot of important information in 2007. And this video is also something that now is really important together with the information of the Iraq and Afghanistan warlock in the trial of Julian Assange. And at the same time is a very important piece of information, because it's showing an airstrike that happened in Baghdad that also killed a lot of people, and innocent people, and also Reuters journalists. And if you watch it long, that is really an experience as well. Then is also a very immersive, if you want, even you could define it a piece of art. It's a real piece of art that shows a big injustice and a murder. That is why it's called collateral murder. And for example, I was very positively surprised that at the Akademie der Kunst in Berlin, Julian Assange received a prize recently, and in the opening up of this prize, they were showing for like the long length, the collateral murder video. That in a sense gave you also the status of an artwork. And I think that it's very interesting also to see it on that specific line of thoughts. And this is also what could be defined art as evidence. That is not a definition that I invented, but is a definition that I shared and I come up with Laura Poitras in 2014. Actually, it was her idea to come with this concept when we were organizing a panel at Transmediale Festival. And I found it very important the way Laura Poitras defined art as evidence, because it gives the sense of how art could be connected with whistleblowing. So art as evidence means the possibility of art to reveal injustice and wrongdoing and doing it emotionally. So this is what, for example, Laura Poitras would do with her film. And the idea is that art can reach a wider audience, can reach the emotion of the people, and you can transfer information that is hidden and needs to be revealed, so a form of evidence, through an artistic mean. And the idea is pretty evident with her film Citizen 4, that is also the story of Edward Snowden's leak, the moment in which he leaks the information and the massive amount of data from his experience at the NSA, that also reveals the massive surveillance that the NSA conducted. And this film also explains, in a sense, very complex and sensitive situations, because it's the moment in which also Snowden has to escape from US, but reaches directly the emotion to the people and makes them understand what is behind the whole network of trust around it. And the film also won the Oscar for the best documentary. I don't know if you never saw, I suggest you also to watch it. And another work of art that we could define as art as evidence is for sure also the work of Trevor Paglen. He uses his photography to explain and show how art could be revealing hidden information. Like in this photo, we can see a secret US military base, or he does the same with drones that are up on the sky, and the normal human eye cannot see, but instead the photography apparatus can reveal. And so in that sense, the technology and the way you create art through technology is able to give you information that exists in reality but are hidden. And so gives these moments of revelation of what is hidden to be revealed into also better understanding of reality. And at the Disruption Network Lab, and since many years, I've been trying to connect these dots to try to understand in which way we could bring together whistleblowers, artists, hackers, investigators, from one side to bring the discourse of disruption into art, so try to understand how we could understand the systems from within through the artistic practice, but also at the same time how is possible to use the concept of disruption to understand better political issues. And so how do we interpret and we expose the inner mechanism of systems, how we reveal information that need to be revealed. And so this kind of circle then becomes very important in the sense that we can understand how art can disrupt certain systems by stretching the logic, for example, of big tech, or also systems that are closed. But from the other way around, we can see also how it's possible to use disruption as exposing systems of power and injustice. And the first conference that we organized in Berlin was called Drones. And it's something that I will never stop to repeat and remind, because in this moment we invited Brandon Bryant, that has been our first keynote speaker. He was a sensor operator in the US drone program, and also a person that decided to speak out. And he was the first drone whistleblower that decided to denounce the faults of these systems, to make understands how often drones are also used for targeted killing and killing the innocent people. And also how all this system is often broken and creates a lot of injustice. I would say at the moment we are also witnessing this in Gaza, the idea also how technologies is used strategically to kill people, and also how we are all complicit in that if we don't start questioning this technology. So with Brandon also we became great friends, and thanks to him we start to get in contact with many other people in this field. And I feel also that at the Disruption Network Club we were able to create a network of trust among us, activists, artists, whistleblowers, and we all had a similar mindset. And with this approach, then in 2021, we created a book that is called Whistleblowing for Change. The book exists on print, but also online, so you can just download it using a QR code if you go on our website. I have also here little cards that I can give it to you. And in this book, you can find the point of view of many people, including also Joana, that is part of the book, in which whistleblowing is discussed as a mindset. So the idea is why people start blowing the whistle and what brings together artists, whistleblowers, people that seek for justice, investigative journalists, hackers. So what all these people have in common, and how do you think that is possible through this mindset that also connects with the idea of exposing injustice in several fields? How is then possible to provoke change in society, in politics, and in technology? Many of these people are people we also invited at the Disruption Network Club. So is tracing the paths of 10 years, because we have been running the program now since 2014. And is a coexistence of different stories. I also very happy of the topic of this festival, because the idea of coexistence is very important to try to bring people together, share knowledge, and also try to see perspective from very different points of view. And this is very important in whistleblowing, because often the whistleblowers are people that are isolated, persecuted. Many of them are very young, at least in the field of technology. In the past 10 years, they have been charged with really heavy measures, like the Espionage Act. And so this creates not only that many of these people had to go to prison, others fortunately didn't, but still had a very difficulty in going on in their life. Because of course they get isolated, they cannot get the normal job. You can imagine, I mean, your big enemy becomes the state, and how do you deal with that? And how can you also make justice on yourself, on what you did and what you revealed? And now we enter into a specific subject that I also feel is very important, and then we'll connect with the work of Joana. That is the one related to network warfare. As part of these book chapters, that there is one that is called Network Expose, Tracking Systems of Control, and beside the chapter of Joana, that she will also explain better what her work relates to, we have two people that have been very important at the Disruption Network Club, Sean Westmoreland and Lisa Ling. They were both active in the US drone program. Lisa Ling has been working a lot together with Sean Westmoreland to develop the concept of the kill cloud. And this is also the title of the chapter in the book. And the idea of the kill clouds is the idea of trying to understand the network-centric warfare, not just, for example, through drones or bombs that are thrown into different territories, but really as a complex network of interconnections that connects from our device to satellites, and of course the idea also how is develop technology and AI until the moment in which, for example, targeted killing are related and created in different countries. For example, if we think about Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, but now we can also speak, unfortunately, about Gaza. So at the Disruption Network Club, through these people, we were offered to start fellowship program. So it was through the whistleblower that came to us and say, we really would like to develop this research of the kill clouds in a deeper way, because of course you can understand in university or in many other places, it's not always really easy to work on certain subjects. I think also the whole protest of the students in these days are really the testimony that often there is a lot of complicit interest even in the universities. So they ask us, that we are not a university, to start developing a fellowship program. And we decide, okay, we want to do, I think is a really great challenge. The idea of this research program that started also symbolically the 11th of September in 2023 was to investigate the kill cloud and try to understand how the future of technology, especially AI, is used to develop the future of war, and specifically network-centric warfare. And there are 4 fellows that are working at the moment. One is Lisa Ling, that was a technical surgeon in the US drone program that I already mentioned to you. And she is developing research about the accountability of AI, and it's even possible to think about that in the context of the kill clouds and in the context of these pervasive clouds of data and information that is also used for war and to target civilians. Then another really great researcher we have is Jack Paulson. He's also a whistleblower. Some people would define him as a corporate whistleblower, because he's trying to surveil the surveillance industry and try to understand also by mapping procurement data what is the complicit aspects that brings together corporations and the military industrial complex. And then one other research we have in is Naomi Colvin. She is working specifically on the role and the responsibility of UK in the developments of lethal automated weapons, and also what is the effect on that on society, how is the society reacting to battle this. And then one is Joana, that she will also explain better what her research is about, and I'm very happy that she's part of the Institute, because also through her work, as you will see, is really possible to connect all these subjects that sometimes are also very hard and technical into the artistic practice and even performance. And at the same time, and I'm concluding soon, at the Disruption Network Club, we are trying to connect this work that we are doing at the Institute with our regular program of talks. And just recently we did one conference that was called Beyond Control. In this conference in Berlin, we invited also really great speakers to discuss about the discourse of digital authoritarianism. And we had a panel that I would also suggest you to watch, because we always record everything, so you find it online. And in this panel, we had a very important discussion that was bringing together the discourse of Gaza, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan, and the way also you can use technology not only to harm people, but also to empower them. And specifically in the discourse of Gaza, Manolo Lupichini was also explaining how it's possible to use eSIM cards to create networks of connection for the people in Gaza that are not really able to connect, because also the infrastructure is controlled by Egypt and Israel. And this happened through a very simple system by putting this eSIM into a bucket that is put up on trees or high buildings. That is why it's also called Web Trees, the whole project, and having this device very high up on trees, for example, this creates a network, like a hotspot so that people can use and they can connect. So this is also a way to, in a sense, hack technology to give accessibility to people in the moments of war. So yes, I would suggest to check this panel. Also, there was the whole perspective of Arzu Geybullah on Azerbaijan, and also how the government there is using certain tools to monitor citizens and also dissidents. And then the perspective of Tanya Lokot that was speaking about the war in Ukraine and what is happening in the occupied territories and how the people are creating resistance not only through technology but also through relationship and trying to also find solutions in a situation that apparently is very difficult and doesn't have much solutions. I would like also to end by inviting all of you in the fall, because we will have a conference that is celebrating the 10 years of the Disruption Network Club, in which we will present the investigation and research as our fellows, and will be the moment in which we will bring to the public the results of the investigation on the kill clouds. So hopefully see you in Berlin, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Tatiana. I have already here one or two points that I would like to discuss, but I will also start by inviting also you to think also about things that you want to bring to the conversation. But first, I want to give you the stage.
Thank you. Thanks also for the invitation. I mean, I was sad I couldn't be here earlier this year, so I'm very glad I'm here. Also, thanks, Tatiana. I think for me, this Disruption Network Lab, it's always a place where I feel very much home, because it's very, especially with practices like mine and others, where political activism is something that's very present, even if not directly all the time, but tangentially, and also research, but the artistic part is like the most important. And I think Tatiana is like one of the only people I know that really understands this. And something else, right, that she can stand in front of, you're presenting your work in front of policymakers, researchers, journalists, that they say, okay, what is this artist doing, right? And you can understand, you can see it on their faces that they just like, an artist, what does an artist has to do with all this, right? Of generating evidence. And then Tatiana goes there and she puts this up front, that she just gives you your space. And I think that's fantastic, because it's very hard for people to understand the role of art in whistleblowing, in political activism, and also in promoting like deep change in the way we understand things, and shifting perspectives and imaginaries. And I think that art can do this better than anything else, but then it's very hard to communicate it to these people. I think Tatiana does this very beautifully, so thanks a lot. Okay, so my research as a fellow at the Disruption Network Institute, it tackles very much ad tech. Ad tech, I'm gonna explain what it is here, step by step, but it's basically the biggest business model of the internet. And most of the Kill Cloud drones program, what's happening in Israel is being fed, like artificial intelligence is being fed by commercial data that's being generated on the run while we are just accessing normal websites, we are opening apps, and we are receiving advertising. And the depth of this system is so big and so perverse that it goes not just through corporations, but to the core of the Department of Defense of some of the biggest countries in the world, like the US and Israel, not as big, but big enough in terms of security and development of especially security technology. And it's something that's been highly overlooked because it's really hard to see. It's really hard to understand how we can go from users to sort of pseudo-contractors for big military complexes, right? And that's what I'm trying to map during the fellowship. But first, I want to start explaining step by step what is attack and why is it important and how we can identify attack foremost. Can I get that? Yeah. So I've been using this slide forever. I think I'm going to change it soon because I noticed the story from heart and sometimes I feel it's so good. But anyway, even though the internet is probably the biggest ecosystem we have built in the history of humanity, it's really, really invisible and it's just accessible through interfaces, right? Even graphical interfaces or physical interfaces. And even those interfaces have been developed by the army, by the US Army. Yeah? And this is also very important to understand that the base of the internet is essentially military. The internet was built with military funds for very specific military purposes. Yeah, it was especially developed after the aftermath of the Cold War, when the U.S. started to be very worried about being attacked. Especially they really understood that they had to protect all their airspace because nuclear bombs could come. And then Sputnik happened. They're also very worried that the Soviets, they have a satellite up there in the space, and they can just shoot anything at us, right? So we really need to protect this. And there is also another layer that's been quite crucial in the developing of the internet. I'm gonna have some slides on that, so I might repeat it a little bit. But it's the fight against communism, and the obsession of the U.S. to fight communism, as exposed by the first nuclear bomb explosion that was carried out in August '49 by the Soviets, and the Sputnik, which also a Soviet satellite. So at some point, especially during the Vietnam War, the U.S. realized that after the Second World War as well, the wars would not be against superpowers, but the wars just somehow turned into something much smaller, and it was very hard to control small insurgencies all over the world. Yeah? So they thought about this machine or this apparatus already back then that could monitor the whole world and could prevent insurgency. So they could monitor the world and prevent uprising, like social upheaval to happen. Yeah, and we can really see this as the core sort of construct of the internet. Yeah, like this is the main idea that made the internet happen. And I think it's also very important to understand that the internet came to be something not because it was natural, but because it fulfilled a certain ideals, certain needs that were projected in that case by the U.S. government, and the Department of Homeland Security or Department of Defense. Anyway, this said. Also, let's go, also a little bit some decades later. Bill Gates said the power in the digital age is about making things easy, right? And it seems like a very naive sentence, but it's really, really true, and it really explains how corporations getting, especially when we're talking about IT and by extension the military, but I'm not going to have time to cover all this here. They're getting increasingly more powerful because the more our interactions with the internet are erased, the more data we are producing for these companies. Therefore they have more power and also more money by extension. Right? I don't know if you remember, like in the even beginning 2000s, the first mobile phones that we had, that we could send 10 SMSs a day and play a little bit to the snake, right, the game, and that's it. And even your fingers were hurting, right? And now the amount of information that we generate on a daily basis, it's crazy. The amount of data that we are sending out there, just to give you an idea, been with 3 and 4G networks, one user on average generated, I think it's about 20 megabytes of data per month. No, 2 gigabytes of data per month. But with 5G or with 5G networks, it's expected that this number is going to go to 30 gigabytes a month. And this is just because it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be easier to use, data is going to be cheaper, and we're just going to have access to more data because 5G is just going to open the bandwidth much more, right? Also, it's important to understand the moment where we're living now, right? Like sort of the financial, economic context where we're living. Well, wealth is no longer produced by by producing tangible goods, yeah? Like, a microphone, a table, food, trucks, anything you can think that's an object that's tangible, but also by exploring things that are intangible, as communication, yeah, as human experience. That this is basically done by all those devices that are able to quantify all our experiences and then commodify them, and just to commercialize things that before they weren't able to commercialize. And that's the business model of Google, Facebook, and the likes. So the web business model, so the internet, as we all know, we're not paying. I mean, we're paying to have access to the internet, but we are not paying to most of the platforms that we're using, right? All these platforms are being funded by the business model, or the biggest industry in the internet, which is called Arte, which is a short for advertising technology. And basically that's what makes the internet free as it is. Yeah? But in return, you just give a lot of data. So AdTech is responsible, basically it's the biggest surveillance ecosystem on the planet, and it's responsible of this massive extraction of data from users on a daily basis. But again, this is very, very obfuscated, and it's really important to generate awareness, not just because for the amount of information and power that companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and so on have on us, but also especially for the links to the military industry, that this is even much more obfuscated. So the business model, again, is so big that even though companies like Google and Facebook, Alphabet, also Google, yeah, they claim to be like a pioneer in high-tech technology, whatever, innovators, blah, blah. In fact, they are ad brokers, they're advertising brokers. Yeah? And ad tech generates, like advertising generates, in the case of Google, around 80% of their income. And for Facebook, this was data from 2017, but 2019 it was even 99% of the revenue that they got. Yeah? But it's not just revenue, it's also all this amount of very precise data that they are getting, and all the intermediaries that are in between these companies, that they also suck a lot of data. Yeah, well, I explained this, but just to stress the fact that AdTech is the biggest surveillance ecosystem that exists now on the face of the earth, and it's fit on data, user data. User data is the raw material so this ecosystem can run. Yeah. Just so to make an idea, this is like the AdTech sort of ecosystem of main companies and services. Yeah, this is data from 2020, as you can see, and here they call it total solutions, but more than 8,000 companies that were dealing with this. There is much more, yeah, but just to understand, I think this map, for me, it's very valuable to show how big and how complex, but yet how invisible this ecosystem is. We know Facebook, we know Google, they're very visible, we know Amazon even, but beyond that, it's really hard to understand who else is feeding or taking advantage on this ecosystem, right? So that's an idea, which is insane. And a lot of these companies are US contractors as well, or have been, or are selling data to the US government, or are selling data to other governments on other parts of the world. So, very shortly, this is an infographic from a report that was published in 2007 called Networks of Control, which I really, really recommend. I think now it's a little bit outdated, but because it was published in 2017, but still it really exposes the dynamic of this ecosystem. It was one of the earlier reports that did that in a way that people like us could understand. So every time we go, we access a website, we use an app, we do like, we swap, we scroll, we send messages, or even just by the fact of installing an app. There is a lot of things that happen between we open the app, we access a website, and we are served certain things even where prices are displayed, services or advertising that we are seeing in real time. All this happen, and there's something called micro-targeting. That's basically every time you download an app, you have a unique identifier. Every mobile phone on Earth has a unique identifier. Yeah. So every time we access any of these services, those services immediately can identify us. So every time we do something, this data is being aggregated with historical data of ourselves, of our online activity. And this is just basically spread all over the world in several thousands of different companies. And in less than 10 milliseconds, we received an ad that's tailor-made for us, or we received, as I said, a certain pricing, or anything that you can imagine. Yeah, everything is really, really personalized because IDs are not anonymous, and IDs are linked to devices, and devices are linked to persons, to people. And then this guy. Okay, so this guy, his name is Louis Montuil. He's the person that invented cookies back in 1994. Before 1994, the internet, or the World Wide Web, we have to differentiate between the internet and the World Wide Web, different things. The World Wide Web runs on the internet, and the internet was created by the military industry. Yeah, but so we understand it. So in 1994, he created the cookies. And essentially, before the cookies, going or navigating through the World Wide Web was something relatively anonymous. Yeah, like you can imagine some sort of the analogy of walking through the streets when video cameras, surveillance cameras didn't exist. Yeah. But when cookies appear, suddenly the internet became a place where every single activity could be recorded, monitored and recorded. He alerted about this potential threat when he published the cookies, he and his team, that the cookies could enable the internet to become a massive surveillance ecosystem, which is obviously what happened. But the cookies were not intended for that. Yeah? Essentially, a cookie is something that can identify you, just like a credit card. Yeah? When we go to pay in the shop, we use the credit card. We don't have money. We're not exchanging money, but we are exchanging an identifier that allows the shop that we just made the purchase connect to the bank and subtract this money. So cookies are essentially working the same way. Yeah, just like, okay, there is somebody that has access, I don't know, the Guardian with this identifier and this cookie, and then somebody that has access to another website. It's like, okay, this is the identifier, and we understand that this is the same person that accessed the Guardian 10 years ago, 5 minutes ago, yesterday, whatever. Yeah. And then it's online tracking. Online tracking appeared, especially is very attached to cookies, also to fingerprinting and other methods of tracking. But it's essentially this act of collecting anonymous information, anonymously, not anonymous information. It's collecting information from user activity in an anonymous way. Yeah. And we are being served thousands of cookies every day. I did this project in 2022 in collaboration with the Supercomputing Center in Barcelona, which is the third biggest supercomputer center in Europe, where we analyzed all the cookies present in the top 1 million websites, and we could find out that globally, on average, they're being served, it was like 200 trillion cookies, something like that. I need to review it, but it was a very, very, very big number of cookies. It's something that we are exposed now as we speak. There is this, I call them little parasites that are just sucking data. They're just sucking and sucking and sucking all the time. Sucking to take them somewhere else. Yeah? And then there is the data brokers. Data brokers are major players on this ecosystem. Obviously, it's not just people, but it's companies that basically collect data and develop user profiles on people. Yeah. So, for example, if you are a person that you usually access, again, the Guardian, and then you purchase things at Amazon, but you're also married, but you also have a car, and you also bought a house, and a lot of things that you can connect online and offline. So all these data brokers, their main goal is just, or the business model is to aggregate data from very diverse sources and create unique profiles on people in order for them to sell this data. A lot of these data brokers, and especially the big one, have been connected to the, acted as US military contractors, and then have actively sold data and still are selling data to the US Army. So for example, this is also an infographic from the same report in 2017. This was an update that they did. Axiom is one of the biggest data brokers in the world, American. Oracle as well is one of the biggest. And Axiom claims that they can provide up to 3,000 attributes on people. Yeah? I did an experiment with my students, and we tried to recreate that with our own data, and we couldn't get to more than 100 or 200 points of data, right? And Oracle is a data broker that specializes very much in doing credit score, which means values the risk of somebody that's going to be able to return debt, yeah, to a bank. So they claim that they could provide more than 30,000 attributes on 2 billion consumer profiles. Yeah, that's a lot. Who could tell about 30,000 attributes? But I guess it's possible, right? Somebody has like all your history, recorded history of interactions with the internet since 1994, when interactions were suddenly able to be recorded. It might be possible. This is also one of the databases typical from Axiom. This is, you could see like basically when all these individual user profiles are created on people, then they're being divided by clusters and sold for different purposes, right? So here, for example, we have information on people called dynamic duos, which their spending is bigger than $1,000 per year. They're married, they don't have kids, they are between 36 and 45 years old, they live in suburbs and towns, and you can just see like the rest of the database, right? But that's how this data is being, after being aggregated, it's being clustered, yeah? And this is something that you can see in Axiom. So for example, let's say I'm the owner of a flower shop. I'm not gonna play like I'm the government of the US. This would be too complex, but I have a flower shop, and Mother's Day just approaching. I think actually Germany is in Sunday, and I go to Axiom because I just want to have more people come to buy at my shop, yeah? And Axiom presents me with this. So they told me that they know that 4.2 billion are spent on jewelry, 4.1 billion are spent on a special outing such dinner or brunch, and 2.4 billion on flowers. Like, okay, I want a part of this, yeah? And then they would offer me with these data packages, yeah, which the generous gentleman, it's a cluster, department store that, the getaway white, the car connoisseur, and with quite a thorough description of what these people is aiming, right? So what Axiom would do, they would give me the data packages, depending on how much money I'm willing to pay for it. They will give me the data packages, which include emails, telephone numbers, browsing habits, and anything that can be useful to me to attract these people to my shop. Yeah? But what's happening when this is not used to serve you in advertising or to persuade you to go and buy something, but it's used as counterinsurgency methods? Yeah? That's when it's becoming very dangerous. And what's happening when this is going to be fed, because there's a lot of GPS location also in those advertisings. What's happening when this is being said to an algorithm that determines how much people is going to die in Ukraine or in Gaza, right? Again, tax season. Now you are a lawyer, you want to track customers because you need to do your tax revenues, same thing, data packages. But when we ask for this data, we usually don't get anything. This is somebody that was requesting their data from Axiom, and that's what they got, their data encrypted. Yeah, and even though there is a lot of measures put up in place so we can reclaim our data, there is, I don't remember, there is a law in California, I think, that went out recently that you can actually go and request your data. There's also the GDPR, and there's many others. But it's very easy for these people to just decline your request. Yeah, and they make you go through all these corporations through a tedious set of procedures that you, as a single human or user, you are unable to afford it, also for money and also for time. Yeah. So the symmetries of power are very, very evident when we see this. Yeah. We give out everything very easily. And again, let's remember like Bill Gates' sentence that way I think it's so precise. Like power in the digital age is about making things easy. Because when they make it easy, we just give out everything, right? But that's what we get in return, obscurity. And this is also data that's a bit from 2019, but these companies, they just have millions and millions of customers and data on millions and billions of people. How many active users of these numbers? We don't know, we won't ever know. Yeah? But as the years pass, and now there is like a huge generation of before were kids, now they are teenagers and adults that are also joining the internet and all these platforms, those numbers are just threefold or skyrocketing. And also it's all the visits that those platforms receive every day, yeah, which are on the billions. So yeah, these companies have a lot of data, and yeah, I mean, it's a problem. That's why I think from the art world or art practice, it's very important because we can really generate a lot of awareness on that and also a lot of evidence, which is what I sort of tried to do in the last years. But even though I did a lot of research on all this ecosystem and surveillance practices on the internet, and especially materiality, I feel that I missed something out, and which is the body and the reactions of the body and these emotional affective layers of the body, because what's happening when you are actually involuntary part of the US Army, because your interaction or your data might be fed to these giant monsters and be fed to a kill club, be fed to a AI trained to kill people in the shape of drone, in the shape of anything. This does something to the body, and that's what I'm also exploring with Tatiana. It's something very new, which is all these things that basically, okay, I will explain it different. So in order to explore this, I did these experiments 1 year ago with students where we're just enacting all these practices, data extraction practices. So one student was a cookie, one student was a tech CEO, one student was even pollution, one student was data, so it was just try to explore these entanglements of non-human and human things that take part of the internet. And the results were quite devastating because we had one panic attack, people that were really carrying like a lot of burden because the body knows much more than it tells. And the fact that those technologies and those data extraction processes are traversing our bodies every day because, okay, it's like we have the phone that is our proxy, but in fact, it's in our bodies that all this is extracted. So I think it's something very experimental, but I think it's very worth trying to do something with it and try to understand what the body has to say about all these systems, because I think that's sort of, again, gaining other perspectives and other imaginaries of what these ecosystems are and which kind of, how they organize bodies and which kind, like which political dimension has this, which implications and what societies are we actually building, right, and experiencing. Anyway, yeah, I didn't explain it very clear, but we can take questions, so thanks.
Thank you. I think that you explained it very clear. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'll ask the audience also to think what do you want to bring to this conversation. But I will start with a question or a reflection that will try to connect both presentations. And in fact, I was really happy that you spoke about the body now in the end, because I was thinking about it while you were speaking. And I was thinking in this sense that is, You spoke a lot about this capitalizing the user's data, that there is a capitalization of the data and the information that we give to the use that we do of technology. But I was thinking at the same time about the word that is this, the capitalization of our attention, mostly. So in order to use the data, you really need to have something to play with, something that somehow connects to your presentation, because you spoke about the work that you do in Disruption Lab. You spoke about the importance of unveiling things and revealing injustice, but in an emotional way. So bringing this dimension that it's not only hard or cold facts, but the emotion is also engaged in this. So I was thinking that in order to create this capture of attention, it means that these platforms are also working a lot with these materials that you work also, emotion and trust. So I was thinking if disruption, it's not something that needs also to enter in this, and somehow it involves and it engages our nervous system. You spoke about panic attacks, and perhaps it's in this sensitive body that will. So I don't know if it makes sense to you what I'm saying, but somehow it was a way that it resonated to me. Your two presentations. So what? Can you please say something about this attention?
Yes, I think the attention part is very interesting indeed. If we speak about disruption, maybe I would also like to explain why I'm using this term disruption, that in a sense has been now appropriated a lot, even from, if you want, from companies and corporations. But it's also very interesting because actually comes from business. So the idea of disruption was initially brought to the public from Clayton Christensen, and he was using in the context of disruptive innovation and disruptive technologies. And the idea of disruption in business terms means to introduce in the market something that the market doesn't expect. So, like, for example, an innovation or a technology that brings into the economy and the market something completely new that disrupts it and create a change from within. So the idea I started to use disruption is actually a political stand, because I say then we have to appropriate who is always appropriating us. So since even we know from even the history of counterculture, business has been always appropriating activists, even artists, then our take of that could be that then we start appropriating business. And so I really wanted to use the idea of disruption and then transfer this concept into the discourse of art, politics, and society, and make it become a conceptual operation. So at the Disruption Network Lab, then disruption means to introduce an element that the system doesn't expect. And this is something also that could go back to the history of the avant-garde, that they were using the shock idea to make people understand how art and society could be combined, and even how you could dismantle certain logic to make them become art. And if we think about whistleblowing, I think that is the best disruption we can imagine, because whistleblowing is creating in the system that is very close something that the system doesn't expect. And it's coming from inside the system, because whistleblowers are usually people that are working in the system, and then they decide to go out and start speaking about the logic of the systems by creating these moments of disruption and trying to make people understand the logic of these systems from the inside. And this also connects with the idea of attention, because when whistleblowers decide to blow the whistle, brings to attention something that the people don't know, so reveals this hidden mechanism. And this is something that, for example, we could find in whistleblowing, we can find in art, as Joana just explained, but also is something that could explain the way we can use technology, for example, to try to stretch the limits of systems to make understand how these systems work. And so artists could create a disruptive idea by using technology to, for example, use even social media platforms in the way they are not supposed to be used, to make you then understand what are the bugs of this system, how do they work, how you can expose what they do, how they control you, how they are connected with business. But all this kind of conceptual perspective, if you want, has a long history. And I think it's very interesting to create this coexistence of opposition, how to speak about business by using the language of business, but trying to disrupt it, and also create art through it.
Thank you. Joana, I don't know if you want to say something.
For me, connected to the part of attention, which is absolutely like attention is like the biggest part of these systems, for these systems to work. And now I'm working with a choreographer for part of the research of the project. We're trying to somatize the internet, but also these processes, and process of attention, and try to understand what this ecosystem does to us, our sensory apparatus. Sensory apparatus? I don't know if we call it like that in English. Anyway, so she explained me that there's been a research recently in South Korea. Apparently, South Korea kids are learning through screens from an early stage. And she said that, like our eyes, round, like spheres, they realized that with these kids, they were getting flat. Yeah? So actually, these systems have like an organic biological effect on us. But the problem with having your corneas, I don't know how you call it in English, in Spanish it's cornea, flattened, it's like you're slowly losing your ability to have these 360 degrees of awareness. And that has a tremendous impact in how those kids are experiencing the world, in the sense that their experience is becoming unidirectional. And for me, I wonder what's happening with empathy, what's happening with solidarity when your sight is just unidirectional and you experience the world just from what you have in front of your face, and you're unable to make the connections that 360 degrees allow you to do, right? But that's what these systems want from us. Yeah? And that's how the army works as well. It's a unidirectional system. Yeah? It's control, command, activate. Yeah?
Maybe can I answer to Joana? No, because of course we have a lot of conversation together, and something that maybe would be important to say is also the reaction of the students that they had while you were embodying the cookies and the military-industrial complex, because I think that really shows also the discourse I was doing about connecting art with emotion and producing evidence through emotion. And I think what you are doing is really showing how this works concretely.
Yeah, so when we did all these experiments, I realized how perverse it was from my side. It's something I'm trying to fix now. But yeah, we had one student, he had a background on computer science, and he totally lost it. I mean, he had this panic attack, but he was not the only one. He had like an expressive panic attack, but even myself and the rest of the students, we had to bear a lot with anxiety, because suddenly we felt that we could not, so we tend to deassociate from these systems, right, in order to survive. But when you put the body in the system and you enact it, you got this disassociation, that's it, you are there. And then we all had this feeling that we're inscribed in an ecosystem that was so big and was so asymmetrical and was so extractive and so damaging that we could not take it. But really, I mean, I didn't expect this to happen because it's the first time I did an experiment like that. I never did embodied research. It's sort of embodied research. And it was incredible and very dangerous as well. Then I also had to understand that I had to put limits to this. But there is, somebody once said, I can't remember the quote, that the body knows much more than it can tell. And I felt that because we just gave like some sort of a context where body could express, of course, guiding it to a specific situation, all these things happen. And of course, I explained them all this, and I explained about that tech, and I explained about that extraction processes, so they knew exactly what was happening. They were so coming with increased awareness on all this ecosystem. But yeah, it was really strong. Yeah. And it's hard to understand where to take it still.
We are starting to be short on time, I'm sorry, but I want to perhaps collect 2 questions or 2 comments from the audience. We'll have a concert in more or less 1 hour, so we need to move, but I know that this conversation could go on and on. But I don't know if you want, yes. Can you use the micro, please? It will be there. Okay. We are recording also, so.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. Just a super short one about the other artistic mediums you have used in the past in order to express these very complex research ideas.
Perhaps I can just collect another more just to see if there is any other question. Yes. If there is someone more that wants to speak, please just do that because, yes,
Hi.
I know.
It's also a really short one, but I'm wondering about how effective or not effective you think tools like VPNs or ad blockers and these kinds of techniques are to try and avoid or at least circumvent or confuse these types of systems.
So, perhaps you can.
It's the first time I work with the body. I used techniques, for example, the exhibition we did here and in December, it was from January, right? Until April, I did this piece where I outputted, also that I also presented the Disruption Record Lab. I did all this research on the material aspects of Amazon, so I just printed like a tower of all the tracking code behind the Amazon websites, and it was like 1 meter tower code, more than 10,000 written pages of code. And something that you can relate to this process more from a physical space, and it's just looking at the screen or reading. Yeah, but other than that, a lot of talks, artworks, but mostly screen-based. And now I'm just shifting slowly to a more physical space because I feel it's really important to experience the body or the materiality of these systems, every aspect of its materiality with the body. So, yeah. And about ad blockers, should I answer also, or Tatiana, you want to say? Well, I mean, if you have an ad blocker, first, it's not going to block all the tracking cookies of fingerprinting, and second, you're going to be targeted as somebody that is concerned about privacy. So you're not going to escape this one way or the other. Yeah. Even though it's not 100% reliable neither, so there's really no escape. It's like that. I mean, if you think how many of you don't want to have a Gmail account, but you have to have it because somebody at your kid's school or at the yoga place, you need to sign up through a Google form, right? It's just really hard, really hard.
Tatiana, don't know if you want to say
No, this is.
So if there's no urgent, I think Tatiana and Joana will be here today, and then perhaps I can say that if there is something, you can also speak after this moment. So we'll end now. Thank you very much for your presentations, and I think that I will take a lot of things to reflect with me also. So thank you, and hope to see you in the concert later.
Thank you.
You.